I'll give you another few seconds to join. And in the meantime, we can maybe introduce ourselves. So I'm Sophie, and I'm the EMEA Marketing Manager here at Visibrain.
And I'm Nishay. I'm the International Business Developer at Visibrain.
So I think we can get started. Yeah, so today we're going to be discussing, you guessed it, TikTok. We'll be discussing what it means to be a successful brand on TikTok and the many different ways that that can look. So if you've ever found yourself struggling with how to show up on TikTok, you're definitely not alone. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll be feeling a lot more confident. So for the program of today, we're going to first start with some of the key facts and figures around the platform. We'll also discuss the TikTok landscape and what that looks like today. We're then going to take you through 3 case studies that we feel are a great example and who also have the data to back that up. And then we'll finally take you through what we call the anatomy of a viral post, where we've aggregated a bunch of data to discover what top posts have in common on TikTok. And all of that data we have collected with Visibrain. So, Nishay, I'll hand it
So,
to you.
yes. So, before we dive into the TikTok strategies we've identified, I'd like to introduce the platform we use to analyze the data. So, basically, Visibrain is a social media listening tool, and it helps brands, agencies, media professionals to track conversations, detect emerging topics, and understand how content actually spreads online in real time. So, in our case, we used VisiBrain to monitor TikTok conversations by tracking public posts. We tracked public keywords, hashtags, and mentions over a specific time period. And to talk a little about VisiBrain's coverage, it's important to highlight that we offer one of the most comprehensive social listening solutions on the market because, as you can see, we monitor all major social media platforms. We have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. But I like to focus especially on LinkedIn and TikTok, which are among the most challenging platforms to track. Our coverage um, includes both earned and owned content. So whether it's tracking TikTok conversations through, as I said, keywords, hashtags, or monitoring specific brands' accounts, this is exactly how we were able to collect and analyze all the data we will share with you today. And VisiBrain covers over 100 countries, so it works across multiple languages. And this gives you access to both real time monitoring and historical data.
Yeah. So now to going from VisiBrain to TikTok, just a few basic stats here to get started. But obviously, we know TikTok as one of the largest social media platforms worldwide. So with 1.6 billion active users globally. Last time I checked. Almost 25 million of those users are based in the UK, and I see a lot of you here are tuning in from the UK. So glad that we got that figure for you. In total, there are 7 million brand accounts present on TikTok. But while so many brand accounts exist, the amount that are generating high engagement is a lot lower. Um, and finally, while TikTok would classically be known as a Gen Z and Gen Alpha social platform, there's now a wider range present than ever, with 70% of users being between 18 and 34. And that age range is just continuing to grow. So more reasons to get on there and see what it's see what it's all about.
So this slide isn't really about saying some industries are good at TikTok and others are bad. It's more about understanding how TikTok actually works. So in some sectors, as you can see, beauty, fashion, food, um, it feels very natural on TikTok, not because they're intended for younger generations, but more because their content already matches TikTok's core mechanics. It has visual impact, it has emotion in the first seconds, and most of the time, the stories don't really feel like ads. But on the other side, you can see sectors like banks, insurance, public institutions. So these industries usually struggle at first, but not because TikTok isn't for them. It's more because they try to bring their existing communication codes onto the platform. So the key learning is that TikTok doesn't really reward what you're saying, but how you're saying it. And the brands that win, especially in unexpected sectors, are those who think, how would this look if it was made for TikTok or in TikTok language? So once you crack that, the format, the tone, the storytelling, your sector almost stops mattering. And that's what we're going to break down today.
Yeah, sorry, just before I get into the next slide, I just want to make sure that everyone can still hear us both. I can't see you at the moment, Nishay, but I think we're having some connection issues. But let us know if there are any problems or if you want us to repeat
Oh,
anything. It might be a good time. Oh,
perfect.
perfect.
We
It
can
might
hear.
be a good time to yeah, it might be a good time to also remind you guys of the question box at the bottom. So if you ever want some clarification on something, if a question pops into your head, feel free to pop it in there and we will get to the questions at the end. But now, as Nisha said, certain brands do have a bit of a leg up when it comes to virality on TikTok. But equally, brands that have this advantage also have a negative aspect. So, you know, the way they say good news travels fast and bad news travels faster, that's definitely the case when it comes to TikTok. Now, one example we found of this just in the past week, actually, is in the case of Huda Beauty. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Huda Beauty, but it was started by an influencer, Huda Katan. And so this week, um, Huda actually posted something to her own personal socials that was quite political in regards to what's happening in Iran at the moment. And it erupted across socials, but specifically on TikTok. And it resulted in, you know, people breaking up their palettes and filming themselves throwing their Huda products in the bin, widespread calls for boycott, etc. So it's definitely something to be aware of for all brands, but specifically brands that are generating a lot of engagement and potentially working with influencers. But, you know, don't despair. There are ways around this, and one of those is obviously through a social listening tool where you can be alerted of any kind of increase or spike in mentions before things get too bad. And you can see, if you'd like to read more about that article, Clemence has just put it into the chat, so feel free. But don't click on it now. Click on it later, or save it for later. But yeah, we are almost ready to dive into the case studies. But to give you a bit of background on how we came to these case studies, we have a lot of information also in the TikTok Playbook for Brands, which is a white paper on our site. We'll put a link to that also in the comments, which you guys can download for free. But basically, we studied 10 different brands and all of their best practices to kind of decipher what is the best kind of port of call and how to best show up on TikTok for brands across all different industries. So you can see there we've kind of got a good mix, I would say. But now to get into the case studies. So the first brand that we have chosen is BMW. Now, I would say BMW kind of falls somewhere between those two sides of the graph that Nisha showed earlier, in the sense that it is a lifestyle brand, but it's also a luxury brand, and so they have to make sure to maintain that image, and that can be a difficult thing to do on TikTok, where things are a bit more where kind of authenticity is more rewarded classically. But they do manage to do it, and they're one of the top brands in their sector, as we can see from these figures. So I let you have a look at these figures for a second. You can see that they have generated almost 400,000 likes, and this is over a 90-day period, as well as some good engagement figures there as well. So definitely one to look at in specifically in the automobile industry, and also in the luxury industry. I think you can really get some good ideas. So how do they generate these figures? Well, while some brands do thrive on irreverence and spontaneity, BMW's strategy is a little bit different. They maintain, sorry, a premium feel to their brand. So they don't lose that side of their brand image. Instead, they just keep more of a fast-paced dynamic and stay native to the TikTok landscape. So what does that mean? They basically have a bit of a polished look, but maybe partake in trends, use trending sounds, things like that. We have one example now from this list. So you can see here their top posts, and we've chosen one top post to share with you. I don't think you're going to have sound on this, but just to give you an idea of, maybe you will. Maybe you're going to hear it from
That's not.
my. So there you go. But this is an example of something that really worked well. Um, Maybe a good thing to note is that on the first frame, they've already got text. That's something that you'll see again and again coming up. But really, really simple. They've just used a trending sound and partaken in this like TikTok wide trend that can be applicable to so many brands. So well done to them. Um, but to kind of sum up, what is BMW? What is the core to their strategy? It's content that engaged the platform's audience without appearing out of touch. So they're speaking the language of TikTok, without losing their own brand identity. And what we can take away from that is that you don't have to abandon your brand identity to have success on TikTok, even if your brand isn't exactly aligned. There are always ways of making it work, and it's more about doing that in a creative way. But yeah, now we're going to talk about, I think, one of the most exciting brands on TikTok.
So I'm going to take you through a Duolingo case study. They're kind of the perfect example of a brand that is from a sector you wouldn't expect on TikTok to becoming one of the platform's most iconic accounts. So before we even talk about the content, I want you to look at the impact Duolingo has. So as you can see, they generated over 54 million views. They have more than 4 million likes and around 60,000, sorry, comments. And the number of comments is quite important here because it shows that the community isn't just consuming the content, they're actively interacting with it and engaging in conversations. And besides the comments, there are interesting numbers such as the 1 million shares. So that tells us that this content wasn't just watched, it was shared, it was passed along and amplified by the users actually themselves. Um, and it comes from letting go of traditional marketing rules and fully embracing creativity. Instead of over planning, they chose speed, experimentation, and risk. At least that's what their CMO says. So their social team is encouraged to break the mold and react in real time, um, putting content creation ahead of long approval processes, which honestly isn't always easy and is something we've all been through. So that agility is critical on TikTok because TikTok doesn't really reward polish; it rewards presence, and it rewards the brands that feel human, spontaneous, and that are part of the conversation. And for the video, we're going to show you the one that's the most viewed. And since we have sound, I'm going to give you a little context. It was the most seen video over the past 80 days and the most liked too. It was created through a really unexpected collaboration with Five Nights with Freddy's at Freddy's and That's Not My Neighbor. And for people who don't know, these two are horror video games that were heavily trending on TikTok at the time. So Duolingo decides to jump on the hype of other brands that are already blowing up, and by tapping into the momentum of trending games, they don't just stay relevant; they attract a whole new audience. So I'll let you watch the video. That is actually quite nice. Even everything checks out. Let me inside. We're good, really? Finally! So yeah, that was that. And there's so much to say about Duolingo. I could talk for hours, but I'll focus on the fact that at first on TikTok, I don't know if people remember, but their mascot was criticized and people were kind of making fun of it. But instead of ignoring or trying to clean it up, what Duolingo did was the opposite. They actually listened to what people were saying. And today their mascot replies to users in bold and playful and actually very sarcastic tone. I don't know if you've seen the comments, they're amazing most of the time. So this is where social listening actually really matters because it helps you understand what people are saying about you, so the jokes, the comments, the memes, and the data behind it. So their strategy was turning feedback into iconic brand voice.
And now we're at our last case study. So this one in particular, we chose because I think it's probably one of the most difficult cases of brands or of accounts to create engagement with on the platform as a more kind of serious subject matter. So that's European Parliament. To get started, we're going to, of course, look at the numbers, and you can see they've done a really good job. If we can kind of draw your attention as well to, I think the number of shares is what's striking me the most in the figures here. You can see that they're clearly kind of getting to the aim of what they're trying to do, which is spread awareness about what they're doing. And that's the goal of the content. You know, they're not selling anything, but those shares are really important to them, and they're doing very, very well with it. You can see they have, this is over 90 days, just to remind you as well. So they've posted 60 posts over 90 days. So that's, you know, more than once every 2 days. And obviously generating almost 5 million views over that time is pretty impressive as well for an account such as European Parliament. So very interesting. So let's look at how they do it. So their official presence on TikTok is to explain their work in a more accessible and bite-sized format. And although the content in general seems quite serious in nature, they still don't shy away from taking part in TikTok trends, and you can see that throughout their account. Um, in all of the top posts, you know, there's a lot of them where they're taking part and showing that they understand the platform, and I think that's why they've managed to do so great. They've also found clever ways of tying in news to current trends that are happening on the platform. So if you'll take a look at, I have on the right hand side the video we're going to show you in a second. But what I just want you to note as well is that I guess you can see it's in landscape format. Now this is something that I would consider quite a big risk actually, but it's actually the most liked. I believe, yeah, it's the most liked video on their platform, on their account, pardon me, at the moment. So the risk has actually paid off. And this video is just to spread awareness about the new USB-C chargers becoming standard in Europe. So I can just give you a quick look at that.
Today is a great day. This is the past, and this is the present.
So yeah, you can see again using a trending sound and taking part in a TikTok trend, but kind of also putting their own twist on it, I would say. So that's something to be aware of. So the result of their content is basically that they don't alienate the audience, and that's the main goal of an account like this. I think is to keep them engaged with the people that they're talking to. And I think what we can take away and what brands can take away from that is that if you're, let's say, a more serious brand, you don't need to start creating content that's funny. It just needs to speak the right language. You can remain serious while taking part in trends. Those two aren't mutually exclusive. So something to keep in mind. It's just about kind of choosing the right ones to be part of and keeping kind of with the platform's rules. I know we keep coming back to that, but that's that's really, if there's one thing to retain out of this, it's the most important. But now we are going to go to the anatomy of a viral post. Just before we do, I know I see Clemence has said it as well, but if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the questions box after this. We're gonna get to them. But this next section, we've basically aggregated all of the top posts, a really big bunch of data to decode kind of what are the best practices on TikTok when creating content. What do the top posts kind of have in common? So let's have a look at that.
So on the slide, you can actually see what top performing brands posts have in common. And when you break it down, you can see actually that there's a pattern. So most of the time, their videos are extremely short. In the study, we can see that 80% of them are under 10 seconds. We also saw that all of them start with a strong text hook in the very first frame. So you instantly know what it's about and why you should keep watching it. And the brand is always there, but it's never the main focus. So content always comes first. That's something we saw too. And that's the real takeaway on TikTok. So success comes from creating content that feels timely and relevant to the platform. And data is what helps you get there.
So that was a really great general view on small things that brands can do to level up on TikTok. But you can go a bit deeper into your own sector, and I think I would definitely recommend that. And you can do that through competitive monitoring and trend monitoring, which I'm showing here. So for this, I've chosen the skincare industry, the beauty industry. And you can see on the left, we have a graph showing the top mentioned trends in that industry. Obviously, I know everyone here is coming from, a plethora of different industries, but that can be applied to any industry. And again, can be a really handy way of knowing what people are actually going to engage with, or what people are the most likely to engage with. Pardon. If you post about it. So here you can see that it is K beauty and glowing skin are the highest when it comes to these trends, but that can be applied to many other things. You can also use this competitive monitoring on TikTok to monitor your competitors, obviously, and any accounts that are interesting to you that you feel are good for inspiration. You can then monitor their posts and be aware of the kind of most engaged with posts, posts generating the most likes, the most views, whatever interests you. Have the option to do that with a social listening tool. So just something to keep in mind. And I saw there was a question about sounds. We actually are going to go into that right now. So
we're able actually to track which sounds are exploding in terms of likes, in terms of views, comments, or even shares. And it's not just what feels popular, it's more about what's actually performing. So here, for example, we're looking at the top performing sounds ranked by, if I'm not wrong, the number of posts using them. What's powerful is that that you can break this down by industry, by sector, or even by specific hashtags. As we can see in this case, it's by sector, which was beauty. So instead of guessing which sound to use, you can quickly just see which sounds are already working for your category or for your audience. And it's just a data-driven way to stay on trend on TikTok.
Exactly. But now we are at the end of the presentation. I just want to take this time to firstly thank you all so much for coming, and for, I saw there are a lot of questions there as well. So thanks very much for participating. I'd also like to let you know that we have an exclusive offer for anyone who was interested in the last few posts where we showed the platform a bit more. If that was particularly interesting to any of you, we do have an exclusive offer for Visibrain. If you want to get in touch with Nisha, I've put her email there, and you can also contact us both on LinkedIn, whichever you like. But just to make you aware of that, and you can hear more about that from Nisha if you get in touch. But now we have a little bit of time to get into your questions. So let me see what I see here. Okay. Do you know if charities, nonprofits can use trending? I saw a few about trending sounds actually.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a case by case basis. I think basically all business accounts on TikTok can use a certain amount of the trending sounds, but not all. I think particularly when it is a song, it can be a bit tricky. But what is good is that your account type will kind of determine that anyway. So if you have a business account, you won't have access to certain trending sounds, but it doesn't mean that you can't use any. At least that's the last
Yes.
info I've had. Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Uh,
Um, do you need to have an account on the platforms to monitor with Visibrain? You actually don't, because you can monitor on any platform without having an account. So you just have to tell what you're looking for, and our account managers can help you monitor all of that. But you don't need to have an account on TikTok or even post or any of that to monitor any of the platforms. Actually, not just TikTok.
yeah. I see some more questions here about trending sounds, but I think we got to that. And here's one from Bill. Do brands, agencies tend to drive more or less engagement than influencers? A really interesting question, actually. And I think that the answer is that it really depends on the brands and agencies. I think with TikTok's algorithm, they're treated the same as a creator account. There's nothing stopping brands from generating high engagement, just as high engagement as any creator on the platform. And it's more about what trends you take part in then, and what not only trends but the kind of content that you're making, um, that helps you do that. So I would say things like, not being too uh, focusing too much on the brand, always having the brand visible, but not being the main focus, as Nisha said earlier, is like a huge one for that. I think is to kind of keep native TikTok content that feels like it's made by just any creator, and then um, kind of um, adding your brand in to that in a natural way would be the best kind of way. Um, okay, sorry, just going to take a look
Mm,
through. Oh, this is an interesting one about Duolingo. How did Duolingo turn feedback into brand voice, especially criticisms around the mascot? Did they change the mascot or tone it down, or did they just lean into the criticism? I think this might be the last question because we are running out of time. But Nisha, do you think you can
Go for it.
do that? Yeah.
Well, I think that I'm sorry, I don't have the question in front
So
of me.
sorry. So it's
Oh, yeah.
basically
I
about
think they toned it down, because when you see how the mascot responds to the comments, most of the time they're really bold with it. Most of the time, what they do is they speak, as Sophie said, they speak the TikTok language. So they'll get into the tones, they'll use the slang that people use most of the time, and they're really on page with what's happening most of the time. And what's different with Duolingo, and most of the brands do this now, but they usually comment on TikToks that aren't even talking about them. When something is happening, they'll be like, if it's something not like Huda Beauty or anything, but if it's something fun, usually what they do is they jump in and comment, and usually comment something funny so that it gets attention. But I wouldn't say that they tone it down. They just lean into the criticism and used it as a force instead of seeing it as something bad.
yeah. And just to kind of further develop on the mascot side of it, I think in the beginning they weren't featuring the mascot so heavily until they saw there were a lot of memes online, kind of like with the Duolingo owl outside people's houses and stuff, like saying "time for your lesson," in a threatening way and things like this. And instead of ignoring that, they started to create content around that. It's maybe a bit less of a thing now, but I think that the mascot still has a personality, and I think that's something that's kind of unique about the way that they do things. I see there's a lot more questions that we won't unfortunately get to today, um, but we
I'll get
will.
into touch. I think I have your emails. I'll definitely get into touch with you guys and answer all of your questions because it is still important for us to answer every one of them. I'll send you emails if that's fine with you guys, and reply to every single question.
Yeah. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And we will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.